Prostrations to Ramana, who shines in the hearts of all beings as the self. We begin the satsang with the prayer by Sapna Ganesh.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Namo Ramana. I think Nandakumarji will not be able to chant the Muktakatrayam today from where he is, but I can chant the first two of the Muktakatrayam. Ekam aksharam hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likhyate katham hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yahamahmiti sakshat atmarupena bhati hridi vishamanasa swam chinvata majjata pavana chalanarodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. Does anybody know Deham Mrinmayavat? Pratibha, you know it? Okay. We will go on to the chanting of Upadesha Saram by Uma and Ashwini.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham padabhikkyamanvaham ahamilinake pelaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahame kasat tajjadam yasat satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hichet chittaya yaham ईशजीवयो वेशधीबिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलं वेशहानता स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनं स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरं किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुख्यति तं परं सुखं विन्दति जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम् नमो रमण
Namo Ramana. We now have the sharings of Ramananjali music by Radha along with Vallabh and Pratibha.
Namo Ramana to all. The lyrics is by Dr. Sharada. It is in the Ragam Charukesi set to Aditala. கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே அங்கும் இங்கும் தங்க ரமணன் அழகை தோன்றுதே அங்கும் இங்கும் தங்க ரமணன் அழகை தோன்றுதே மங்களங்கள் என்றும் வாழ்வில் நிலைக்க செய்யுதே மங்களங்கள் என்றும் வாழ்வில் நிலைக்க செய்யுதே ஜெகமெல்லாம் அருளாலே மலர்கின்றதே ஜெகமெல்லாம் அருளாலே மலர்கின்றதே எங்குமே பேரன்பின் மனம் வீசுதே எங்குமே பேரன்பின் மனம் வீசுதே கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே கருணை கடலே பொங்கி இன்ப அலைகள் ஆடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே ரமணா 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 என்று கானம் பாடுதே அங்கும் இங்கும் தங்க ரமணன் அழகை தோன்றுதே அங்கும் இங்கும் தங்க ரமணன் அழகை தோன்றுதே மங்களங்கள் என்றும் வாழ்வில் நிலைக்க செய்யுதே மங்களங்கள் என்றும் வாழ்வில் நிலைக்க செய்யுதே ஜெகமெல்லாம் அருளாலே மலர்கின்றதே ஜெகமெல்லாம் அருளாலே மலர்கின்றதே எங்குமே பேரன்பின் மனம் வீசுதே எங்குமே பேரன்பின் மனம் வீசுதே ரமணா 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 நமோ ரமணா.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This song is a Hindi translation by Sri Ramnath Shastri and music set by Sulochana Mami. In this song, Murugana Swami is praising Aruna Achala Ramana as the light that pervades everything, Achala, unmoving, ever abiding in the self, the Lord of illustrious knowledge, and the medicine that cures the malady of birth and death. अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय, अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय, सत्य ज्ञान सम्राट की जय जय, सत्य ज्ञान सम्राट की जय जय। दुखों की जड़ जन्म व्याधि के, दुखों की जड़ जन्म व्याधि के, राम बाण उपचार की जय जय, राम बाण उपचार की जय जय। अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय, अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय। दुर्लभ होते हुए सुलभ जो, दुर्लभ होते हुए सुलभ जो, और सुलभता में दुर्लभ जो, और सुलभता में दुर्लभ जो। तेजोमय अभिराम की जय जय, तेजोमय अभिराम की जय जय। अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय, अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय। देह में व्यापे प्राण की जय जय, देह में व्यापे प्राण की जय जय। प्राण की वाहक देह की जय जय, प्राण की वाहक देह की जय जय। देह प्राण की सीमाओं से, देह प्राण की सीमाओं से, पार परम चैतन्य की जय जय, पार परम चैतन्य की जय जय। अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय, अचल की जय जय आर्य की जय जय। रमण की वेंकट रमण की जय जय, 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 रमण की जय जय, रमण की जय जय, रमण की जय जय। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. The next two sharings of Ramananjali music are by Savitri and Revati Shankar.
ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತ ಹಾಡಿರಿ, ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ. ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತ ಹಾಡಿರಿ, ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ. ಮನವನ್ನು ನಿಗ್ರಹಿಸಲು ಎನಿತೋ ದಾರಿ ಇರುವುದು, ಮನವನ್ನು ನಿಗ್ರಹಿಸಲು ಎನಿತೋ ದಾರಿ ಇರುವುದು. ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ವಿಚಾರ ಪಥದಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ದಾರಿ ಬೆರೆವುದು, ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ವಿಚಾರ ಪಥದಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ದಾರಿ ಬೆರೆವುದು. ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತ ಹಾಡಿರಿ, ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ. ರಮಣ ಗುರುವು ತೋರಿದ ಈ ಕಿರಣ ಪಥದಿ ಸಾಗಿರಿ, ರಮಣ ಗುರುವು ತೋರಿದ ಈ ಕಿರಣ ಪಥದಿ ಸಾಗಿರಿ. ಅಜ್ಞಾನದ ತಮವ ಸೀಳಿ ಬೆಳಕಿನ ನೆಲೆ ಸೇರಿರಿ, ಅಜ್ಞಾನದ ತಮವ ಸೀಳಿ ಬೆಳಕಿನ ನೆಲೆ ಸೇರಿರಿ. ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತ ಹಾಡಿರಿ, ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ. ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ರಮಣನೆ ಜಯ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತ ಹಾಡಿರಿ, ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ. ಜಯ ದೊರೆಯೇ ಜಯ ಗುರುವೇ ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ, ಜಯ ಪರವೇ ಎನ್ನಿರಿ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 10th verse of Saddarshanam. Vidya katham bhati na cheda vidya, vidyam vina kim pravibhatya vidya, dvayam cha kasyeti vicharya moola, swarupa nishtha paramartha vidya.
Can there be knowledge without ignorance? Can ignorance exist without knowledge? Searching the source of the individual to whom they pertain and abiding there is true knowledge. Any knowledge or ignorance happens only to me. Without me, they don't exist. For the self has nothing. For the self, nothing matters. Everything is only one. Actually, there is no other to the self at all. Knowledgeable, ignorant, anyone can attain the self, and attaining the self is alone important, says Bhagwan. I'll be singing a Kannada translation of Muruganar Swami's song. The translation is by R.N. J. Gopal, music by Vijay Bhaskar. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಪಾಪಿಯು ನಾನು ಪಾವನ ನೀನು, ಇರುಳು ನಾನು ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯು ನೀನು. ಪಾಪಿಯು ನಾನು ಪಾವನ ನೀನು, ಇರುಳು ನಾನು ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯು ನೀನು. ಅರಸಿ ಬಂದಿಹೆ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನನು, ಕಾಯೋ ಗುರುವೇ ನೀನೇ ಈಶನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ನಿನ್ನ ಕೈ ಸೋಕಲು ಧನ್ಯವಾಗುವುದೆಲ್ಲ, ಮಣ್ಣನು ಚಿನ್ನವ ಮಾಡುವೆಯಲ್ಲ. ನಿನ್ನ ಕೈ ಸೋಕಲು ಧನ್ಯವಾಗುವುದೆಲ್ಲ, ಮಣ್ಣನು ಚಿನ್ನವ ಮಾಡುವೆಯಲ್ಲ. ನೀಲಕಂಠನೆ ಶಿವಗುರು ರಮಣನೆ, ಶಿವನಾಗಿ ಸೆನ್ನ ಶತಪಾರಿಜಾತನೆ. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಎಂತು ನಾ ತೀರಿಸಲಿ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಋಣ, ಅರಿಯದೆ ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಓ ರಮಣ. ಎಂತು ನಾ ತೀರಿಸಲಿ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಋಣ, ಅರಿಯದೆ ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಓ ರಮಣ. ದೀನ ಜನಾವನ ಸಂಕಟ ಹರಣ, ನೀನೇ ಇಹ ಪರ ಗತಿಯನಗಿನ್ನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We now have a reading. Today, Sri Vaibhavji will be doing the reading for us.
Namo Ramana. We are reading from Face to Face with Sri Ramana Maharshi. This account is written by R. Narayana Iyer. R. Narayana Iyer did personal service to Sri Ramana. He wrote a number of articles in the Mountain Path under the pen name Vishnu. When he first went to Sri Ramana as a young man, he was a modernist and a freethinker. He writes, in 1929, when employed as sub-registrar at Chetput, a town 30 miles from Tiruvannamalai, I was an out-and-out skeptic and with no religion in me, scoffing in my references to sadhus, sannyasis and swamis, whom I considered impostors and parasites on society, who exploited the credulous folk for personal ends. My only friend and constant companion was Dr. Ramakrishna Iyer, son of Lakshmi Ammal, a friend and playmate of Sri Bhagwan in his boyhood days at Tirucholi. He was well acquainted with Bhagwan and an occasional visitor to the ashram. He once asked me to accompany him to Tiruvannamalai during the festival of Kartikai Deepam. The pomp and pageantry of the temple festival had no attraction for me. Yet I agreed, not wishing to hurt my friend's feelings. However, I requested him to let me stay with my parents, who had gone for the festival and were staying in the town. He agreed. But on seeing the number of persons huddled in a small house in the town, I consented to stay at the ashram, which was less crowded. On the way, I repeated my opinion about the so called holy men and said to Dr. Iyer, I will not come in or join in any of your foolish acts. If by chance I meet your Swami, I will not prostrate before him. I mean no insult, but I cannot do what is against my conviction. We walked in. A man with a white loin cloth, a towel suspended on his shoulder, a kamandalu in one hand, and a walking stick in another, stopped in his walk on seeing us. My friend hastened his steps, and I slowly followed. He was greeted very kindly and was asked about the welfare of his mother and brother. Out of courtesy, I looked at the Maharishi. What a wonderful face and a welcoming smile. Bewitching, fascinating, and a powerful look too. In a moment, I was at his feet on the gravel ground. I soon regained my self possession and felt ashamed. With a pleasing smile, he said, you have a couple of days' leave, is it not so? You can stay in the ashramam. I dared not say anything. I was dazed. Soon I recovered and wanted to find out if he had written any books. I got a copy of Reality in 40 Verses in Tamil. I tried to read the first stanza. I could not follow. The words seemed too closely packed and somehow jumbled together to form a stanza. I was flabbergasted. What? Thought I. Can he not say what he has to say in some intelligible language? Someone nearby said that it had been arranged that the Maharishi himself would explain to us the 40 verses that night. At night, the Maharshi sat on the dais inside a shed containing his mother's samadhi. About half a dozen of us were seated on the ground before him. A solemn stillness pervaded the air. There was absolute silence. Maharshi read the first stanza. The mere reading of the stanza made the meaning as simple as simplicity itself. Stanza by stanza, he read and explained in a voice that was so sweet and melodious and coming as though from somewhere. The climax came. Explaining one verse, he said, God cannot be seen with our eyes or known by our sense perceptions. This is what is meant by saying to see God is to become God. A stalwart person with a severe expression named Dandapani Swami interposed. Is Bhagwan saying this out of personal experience? The question, asked bluntly with such naivete, was answered with equal candor. Else, would I dare to say so? What takes so much time to think flashed upon me in a moment. God cannot be known by our sense faculties. The only way was to become God. If God were to appear before one in flesh and blood, here he is. My body experienced a thrill from somewhere deep down in me. Again and again, thrill after thrill that shook my frame. I went out to compose myself. Well, I seemed caught in a net. The more I was with him, the more I wanted to be with him. But I was shortly transferred to Arani, another town within the same radius of 30 miles. Here I missed the company of my doctor friend. Losing all delight in all the other things, I turned the monthly visits to ashram to weekly ones, coupling Sundays with other holidays. And I was always welcome at the ashram. Sri Bhagwan had his head shaved once a month on the full moon day. Nateshan was the barber who used to do this service. Bhagwan sat on a stool and Nateshan would stand and shave him. Once, Sri Bhagwan suggested to Nateshan in all seriousness that it would be more comfortable for the barber to sit on the stool while he himself would sit on the floor. I used to translate from Tamil to English Bhagwan's replies to the letters received by him. I had made friends with the attendants Madhav Swami, Satyananda Swami, Krishna Swami, Ranga Swami, and others. They did not protest when I gradually introduced personal services to Sri Bhagwan, such as massaging his legs, etc. There were occasions when his muscles became rigid or painful. After his work, like cutting vegetables and directing the task of kitchen workers in the early hours of the morning, he would be on his couch in the hall, sitting there or just reclining like a statue cut in alabaster or like one posing for a painter or a sculptor. Sitting in this manner all the day made his muscles hard and inflexible, and so he required some massage. Thus, by slow degrees, a sort of familiarity and intimacy grew up between Bhagwan and me. Once I asked, Bhagwan, you left your home in Madurai, where your relatives had been treating you with love and kindness and spending money upon your education. You misappropriated their money for your train fare to Tiruvannamalai. You sneaked your way to the railway station so as not to be noticed by anyone. You posed yourself as a pilgrim who had lost his kit. Was all this straightforward and proper? He was silent for a while and then replied, this can be explained. It is said in the Quran that even falsehood is akin to truth when it is unblemished good and harms no one. I once told Bhagwan, I have been here for many years. People meditate and get into samadhi. I close my eyes for a minute and the mind travels round the world 10 times and so many long forgotten things come up. Upon this, Bhagwan said, why do you concern yourself about others? They may meditate or sleep and snore. Look to yourself. Whenever the mind goes astray, bring it back to the quest. Once, a few very learned Sanskrit scholars were seated in the hall discussing portions of the Upanishads and other spiritual texts with Bhagwan. I felt in my heart how great these people are and how fortunate they are to be so learned and to have such deep understanding and ability to discuss with Bhagwan. I felt miserable. After the Pandits had taken leave, Bhagwan turned to me and said, what? Looking into my eyes and studying my thoughts. This is only the husk. All this book learning and capacity to repeat the scriptures by memory is absolutely of no use. To know the truth, you need not undergo all this torture of learning. Not by reading do you get the truth. Be quiet, that is truth. Be still, that is God. Then, very graciously, he turned to me and there was an immediate change in his tone and attitude. He asked, do you shave yourself? Bewildered by the sudden change, I answered, trembling, that I did. Ah, he said, For shaving, you use a mirror, don't you? You look into the mirror and then shave your face. You don't shave the image in the mirror. Similarly, all the scriptures are meant only to show you the way of realization. They are meant for practice and attainment. Mere book learning and discussions are comparable to a man shaving the image in the mirror. From that day onwards, my long standing sense of inferiority vanished once and for all. Once I cried and told the Maharishi that I knew nothing about Vedanta, nor could I practice austerity being a householder. I prayed to him to help me by showing the reality or the way to it. I also frankly told him that this method of self inquiry was too hard for me. He then graciously said, "You know, Ulladu Narpadu, truth in 40 verses. It imparts pure truth, deals with it, and explains it. Go on reading it verse by verse. The words of the verses will in course of time vanish, and pure truth, Sat, alone will shine, like the snake relinquishing its skin and coming out shining." One day, I felt puzzled by the teaching that everything in the world is Maya or illusion. I asked Bhagwan, how, with the physical existence before our eyes, we can all be unreal and non existent? Bhagwan laughed and asked me whether I had any dream the previous night. I replied that I saw several people lying asleep. He said, "Suppose now I ask you to go and wake up all those people in the dream and tell them they are not real. How absurd would it be?" That is how it is to me. There is nothing but the dreamer. So, where does the question of dream people, real or unreal, arise? Still, still more of waking them up and telling them that they are not real. We are all unreal. Why do you doubt it? That alone is real. After this explanation, I never had any doubt about the unreality of the objective world. About the Jivan Mukta, Bhagavan said, the Jivan Mukta is one without any thoughts or sankalpas. The thought process ceases completely in him. Some power makes him to do things. So he is not the doer, but the one who is made to do. Bhagwan's compassion has graced my life many times. On the day my wife died, it rained in torrents. I was afraid that the cremation would be delayed. Bhagwan sent some ashram workers to help me. When Bhagwan was told that the rain was too heavy for the funeral, he said, "Go on with it, never mind the rain." When the body was taken to the cremation ground, the rain stopped, and after the body was burned to white ashes, it started raining again. In 1942, I wanted to get my daughter married. I had a suitable boy in mind, but he raised some objections. Anxiously, I showed his letter to Bhagwan, who said, "Don't worry, it will all come off." Soon afterwards, the boy himself came and the marriage was celebrated. It is our greatest fortune that the Supreme Consciousness, appearing in the grab of a human body, graciously undertook to come down to our level of understanding and bore the tremendous task of imparting to us the Atma Vidya. The contact and impact that I have had with Bhagwan have been such as to make me feel that knowingly or unknowingly, I must have done something in the course of my life to deserve this unique blessing. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We now have the self-inquiry session conducted by Dilip Sinha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I am presently out of station, so my video may not be visible. So I'm only going to speak. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tambraravinde भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वत मज्जतव पवनचलनरोध आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् Namo Ramana. We'll commence today's evening Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. We have been blessed to read from talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. I have opened it randomly and Bhagavan has blessed us with the talk 468, which took place on 10th March 1938. As Sri Bhagavan was going out, the following Vedic chant was heard from a hut. Antaraditya manasa jvalantam brahmana vindat Antaraditya manasa jvalantam brahmana vidant. Sri Bhagavan drew our attention to it and remarked, in the Taittiriya Upanishad also, he is said to be made of gold, etc. What does it all mean? Although the sun and the other luminaries are said to be self-luminous, yet they do not shine forth of themselves, but they shine by the light of the Supreme Being. Natatra Surya Vibhati. So long as they are said to be separate from Brahman, their self-luminosity is the luminosity of Brahman. All these mantras mentioning the sun, etc., speak only of Brahman. It is only one self which is self-luminous, and it is the underlying truth of everything. It lends its light, it lends its reality. It alone is. So long as we think that we are a separate entity, Bhagavan is saying here, then we have to say that our luminosity is from Brahman. However, Bhagavan is so gracious, so kind. He wants us to recognize that we are never separate from that Brahman. This idea, this false idea that we are separate and that we go through these ups and downs because of this false idea is to be questioned, says Bhagavan here. This falsity has to be questioned. So he has graciously blessed us with this Atma Vichara. He says, to whom is this? Whenever a thought, whenever an experience happens, he wants us to question that to whom it is. Moment we question it, then we see that it is for me, the I, the individual entity. Thereupon it becomes clear, it becomes an opportunity to inquire, who am I? Moment we inquire, who am I? We are taken to the source of that I, which is the Brahman, the self luminous self. And therefore, we see that the individuality really doesn't exist. It is always the Brahman alone which was there. It is the one behind everything. That is the only reality which exists here and now. By repeatedly taking our attention away from these objects of thoughts and experiences and ideas and concepts to the individual I, and then further recognizing even I is also an object to a subject called the self. When we inquire, who am I? We are taken to that very self that we are here and now, the self luminous self, which is the reality of everything. So, Bhagavan has blessed this direct path for us to re establish ourselves in our reality, not to get carried away by this falsehood. And vichara, the questioning is the way to recognize this false movement and bring it back and establish in the truth which ever exists, ever present here and now. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next you.
Namo Ramana. Everybody, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, uncle, I can hear you.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Om Vasudeva Satam Devam Kansachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Shantagaram Bhajagashainam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrasham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanayanam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavavayaharan Sarvalokaikanaatham. Om. We are doing Manana on Bhagavad Gita Saram, 42 verses chosen by Ramana Maharshi. So last time we actually did the Manana on the 11th verse. And in that verse, Bhagwan stated that the people who once reach that state of his, do not return to the earth again. This is a very significant statement that Bhagwan gave Shri Krishna gave Arjuna. So I thought at today's satsang, instead of going further, let's do a little recap of what Bhagwan has said in the 11 verses. So the first verse, Bhagwan says, why did this whole Bhagavad Gita happen at all? So that was the first verse Bhagwan had chosen. It was because Arjuna was in distress. So what do you mean by distress? I think this is an important aspect, and it's important for all of us because in our daily lives, we go through distress all the time. We have sometimes to choose between right and wrong. Sometimes we have to choose between truth and being untrue. These dvandvas, whatever they are called, are causing us a lot of distress. And this is actually happening within us. So Krishna, fortunately for Arjuna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna was his charioteer. He was running his chariot. What does this mean? That Bhagwan Shri Krishna was actually in his life. So because Shri Krishna was in Arjuna's life, so Arjuna actually got Upadesha directly from Shri Krishna. So this is a very important aspect in our lives too, is if we are in distress, whom do we go to? Is if we have God in our lives, if we have Bhagwan in our lives, then we can go to him and he will tell us what we need to do, and that will be best for us at that moment of time. So this is the first in the first verse itself. Actually, the whole of the 42 verses is in the first verse. That means if you give your heart to the Lord, if you give your heart to Bhagwan, and if you abide in that self, then then there's no distress. So in the second verse, so obviously Arjuna was using his mind to be able to try to understand, and he could not, at the first state, he could not understand. So Shri Krishna had to obviously tell him through so many verses. So the next verse, which Sri Krishna says was this body is the kshetra, is the field. So for us also, if you look at our body, mind, ego complex, where is the kshetra? The kshetra is actually in the body. The kshetra is nothing but there is these good and there is this evil. There are these thoughts, good thoughts, there are these bad thoughts which are continuously bombarding our mind. Okay, so if they are bombarding our mind, the kshetra, the Kurukshetra, where the Pandavas and the Kauravas were fighting, is actually the good versus the evil. So this kshetra is actually within us. So Shri Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that the knower of the field is called a kshetrajna. Means what? The important thing is we have to understand that Kurukshetra is not somewhere in India, but Kurukshetra is actually within us. It is the kshetra where we are continuously, because of the mind, we are continuously going through these dvandvas. We are dealing with these opposites all the time. So once what Sri Krishna is trying to say is the knower of the field is a kshetrajna. That means if you know what this is all about, this game is all about, then you are a kshetrajna. You know the kshetra. So the great ones, the sages who actually did penance, who actually did, who were in Mauna for years and read a lot and did meditation, actually experienced this, and they realized that they were the knowers of this field. That was the verse 2. The verse 3, which Bhagavan talks about, is the individual knowers in all the bodies are identical with me. So this is another important thing, that once you are a knower of the kshetrajna, of the kshetra, then you this is in all the bodies I am the same. So that's what Bhagavan also says in Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram. This is a very important aspect about all spirituality, and that's what it is, that God resides in the heart of all beings, so that each and every one of us is actually a walking, talking temple. It means each one of us is divine. So this is a very important thing, that in our spiritual journey, that all of us have to realize that, that every being is divine. So here's what Krishna tells, that this discriminative knowledge of both the bodies and the kshetrajna is the ultimate knowledge. So what is this ultimate knowledge? Is to understand what this jnana is all about. What is this kshetrajna? Who is the knower of the kshetra? So this is a very important. So this discriminatory knowledge means you have to use vairagya and viveka to be able to understand what is true and what is sat and what is asat has to be known. So that will take you to the absolute. That was the third verse. The fourth verse, which is the fourth verse, actually Bhagavan was asked, but give us one verse that will tell us everything. So that was the first verse. That's the fourth verse. I am the self indwelling in the hearts of all beings. Thus, I am the beginning, middle, and end of all beings. So this is an important thing that we need to understand. Are we in God, or God is within us? This is in all our journeys we have this confusion, or this thing is, God is within us. So if God is within us, outside there is no God. There's only God is within us. So then what is there outside then? And if God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, that means God is everywhere. So then, after you do a fair amount of manana and do meditation, then you come to a point wherein you realize, oh, I'm actually in the self, and the self is all pervading. So that means my initial thought was God is within me, but as you go along, we realize that actually this body is within the self, which is all pervading. So that's what he means in this fourth verse, that I am the beginning, middle, and end of everything. The fifth one is, one who is born, death is certain, and vice versa. And the person who dies is sure to be born. No point grieving over a matter that is inevitable. This is another thing that is obviously a lot of us, it is bothering us because of the coronavirus. It's very prevalent. The aspect of death. We are seeing a lot of our friends, relatives, and near dear ones, as well as people not known to us. In Bangalore, at least 40 to 50 people are dying on a daily basis. So this is an important thing. Is Sri Krishna is telling, because this is, he was really mentioning it from the perspective of the war, because in the war, if his relatives who are on the other side of the in the other side of Kurukshetra, if they were going to die, what would happen? So this is another important thing that we need to do manana on, is the one who is born is to die. This is certain, and the person who dies will be born again. So no point grieving on this aspect that is inevitable. So death is inevitable. And death is for whom? Death is for the body. Death is for the body means what? Death is for your ego. So the ego dies, actually you should be very, very happy, because what happens is you won't have any desires, you don't have any ichas, you won't have any vasanas left, your account will be clear, and you will not have to come back to this earth again, which was covered in the 11th verse. So it is important that we understand this very clearly, because we always believe that everybody else will die, but we will never die. We always think we're immortal, we'll always be alive, but that's not the case. That was verse 5. Verse 6 was, Atman is not born, nor does it ever die. From here onwards, Bhagavan is talking about more on the Atman side. He's talking about what the characteristics of the Atman. Atman is not born, nor does it ever die. He is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and ancient. Every body is slain. Atman remains unharmed. See, the important thing why Sri Krishna is trying to talk about the Atman in so many verses is because each one of us uses our mind and all our senses to try and understand what is the Atman. We need to grasp something. We need to be able to hold on to something. We need to be able to see something. So effectively what we are trying to do is we are trying to get to the Atman by a physical method, not by from an objective perspective and not from a subjective perspective. So what Bhagavan is trying to tell us is basically that this is something which you cannot, unless you become the Atman, unless you become the consciousness, unless you are that Sachidananda, then only you are in jnana. So this is the very important thing is, so if you have to realize the self, you have to be the self. So there is a huge difference in the way we perceive the world today, which is very objective, and the whole subjective thing about Bhagavan. So here he wants to say is the Atman can never be slain, it can never be killed, it's always there. That's verse 6. Verse 7 is, again, Is self is incapable of being pierced, burnt by fire, nor can it be wetted. It also cannot be dried. It is eternal, all-pervading, stable, immovable, and everlasting. So if for example, if everything was one thing, okay, if everything was one thing, then can that one thing be destroyed? Can that one thing be pierced? It cannot, because everything is that one thing. So we have to understand that today what happens is, for all of us, is that we believe that we are different, and we see the bodies and we actually look at the name and form, and we believe that we are different. But as we do more and more of self-inquiry and surrender, more and more we realize that we are that Atman. So the olden days, the people used to go to Gurukul, and when you are ripe, the Guru will tell you Tattvamasi, you are that, and suddenly you realize, hey, I am that Sachidananda Atman, and then you're fearless and free from that point of time. So similarly, here Bhagavan is also trying to say that the Atman it cannot be pierced. It cannot be pierced because everything is only the self. There is nothing else but the self. Okay, that's what we need to understand, and we have to move away from the asat, that is the body, mind, ego, and move to the sat, which is the Sachidananda Atman. That's verse 7. Verse 8, it's also the same thing. It talks about to know the imperishable. It pervades the whole universe. It's indestructible. Nobody is capable of destroying it. So this is another same thing. It is actually different versions of the same thought, that it cannot be, because a human being thinks in this way. It thinks, can it be pierced? Can it be wetted? Can it be burnt? Can it be destroyed? So these are the animal and human instincts that actually work in our mind. So Sri Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna this directly and indirectly to us, that self is actually nothing can be done to that. So what does it mean? If nothing can be done means what? It is there. It's always there. That means what? If it's always there, that means, for example, my kurta that I'm wearing, cotton is always there. The kurta may be in the form, it may have a green color, it may have some stitches, it may have some buttons, but the cotton is always there. It's just a witness to this whole thing. Similarly, the self is actually is always there and is witnessing this whole drama of life that we're all playing at this point of time. So coming to the verse 9, the unreal, that's asat, has no existence. Again, Bhagavan is telling the same thing, that this body has really no existence, and the sat never exists, never ceases to exist. So that means the self is always there. So the seers have perceived the reality. Now somebody may say, who has seen this? How do you know this asat, the body is asat, and the self is the sat? There have been seers, there are people who have done great sadhana and been able to realize this, what is the asat and sat. The simple example that most of us we give in many of our satsang is the example of the dog. So one dog sees the robber getting into the house, and the dog starts barking. So one dog has seen the robber getting into the house. It starts barking. Now the neighboring dog and all the dogs in the locality also start barking. Why? Why do they bark? Have they seen the robber? They have not seen the robber, but they start barking because they believe that one dog who's seen the robber must be doing the right thing. So I will also start barking. Similarly, the people who have actually seen the asat and asat actually are the real seers. So they're shouting from the top of the voice that this is the reality, So the Sat is the self. So follow this path. If you follow this path, you will get to the get to realization. Number 10, the all-pervading space never gets contaminated. See, this is another thing that we think. Oh, now, for example, if I go to a place where somebody has got corona, I will get corona virus. Okay, so we wear the masks. So, but the self is not like that. The self doesn't get corona. There may be corona everywhere, and all the bodies may have corona, but self does not get corona. Why? Because it does not get affected by what is happening to the bodies. Okay, the qualities of the object do not actually come on to the self. So this is a very important thing that we need to understand is the this body which is jada, which is asat, is pervaded by this self consciousness, because of which I'm able to talk, I'm able to move my hand, I'm able to think. All these things are happening because of that consciousness which is within me. So that pervades everything but does not get affected by the qualities of the body, like aging, or if you have toothache. It does not, the self does not bother about it at all. It is just there, and it's like a witness. So the last verse which we did last time was, neither the sun, moon, nor the fire can shine or illuminate that final state. So that final state is actually that illumination is within you, is the light within you. So the light which will illuminates you also illuminates the sun and the moon and the stars and everything else. So Bhagavan says, once you do self-inquiry and once you do surrender, what happens is that state, you will get to that state where you realize that everything is that Satchidananda Atman, and you will reach that silence within where all your account is zero. There is no desires, there's no vasanas, there's no coming, there's no going. There is only pure self, there's only pure joy and pure bliss. And once you reach that state, Bhagavan says, you do not return to this earth again. This is a very important aspect. All serious sadhakas, all saints, all gurus are saying the same thing, that we don't want to come back to this earth. Why? Because in the earth there is dukkha. Why there's dukkha? Because there is desire for worldly aspects. Worldly aspects do not give you happiness. And if you are with the self, then you are with the Satchidananda Atman, and you are in perfect bliss. That's where we all have to go and get to, and get out the ignorance that is currently controlling all of us. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Jai Shri Krishna.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, Doctor.
We continue the satsang with the sharing by Dr. Kala Rani Ranguswami. Kala? Hello? Hello? Kala, you have to unmute yourself, ma.
நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சல. நமோ ரமணா to all. We have
Is it that I have lost Kala or?
No, Kalaka just lost connection. She may be back.
Okay.
ரங்கசுவாமி அங்கிள் கலாக்கா கனெக்ஷன் போயிடுது.
ரங்கசாமி, கலா எங்களால யாராலையும் கேட்க முடியல.
I think she's back.
நமோ ரமணா, நமோ ரமணா.
We can hear you now.
கேக்குதா? ஓகே.
கேக்குதுப்பா, கேக்குது.
அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா. நமோ ரமணா to all. We have been meditating on Dhyana Pata, very generously given to us by Sadhuvan Swami. And in the last satsang we learned, when we go on giving attention to our thoughts and not satisfying it, we can experience the truth which is within us. பார்க்க பார்க்க உன்னுள்ளே பரம ஞானம் பூக்குமே. And for attending to that, one has to be in regular practice of looking into the knowledge or the light which allows us to see the worldly objects. And this has to be practiced without getting any frustration. Santadamum salipparave, as Bhagavan says. Now, in the next stanza, Sadhuvan says, Karkum kalvi palavidam, kadavul kalvi mudalidam. We learn many subjects. Say, for example, physics, chemistry, geography, economics, biology, politics, medicine, engineering, and whatnot. And we are proud of having acquired a lot of knowledge. But what is the purpose of learning these subjects? It's just to lead a happy life. We are doing this. And people think they can be happy only when they are settled in life with some money for at least a decent living. Till they attain a position, they have to undergo a lot of hardship. So the path they are crossing to reach the goal is not full of rose petals. Okay, at last they reach the goal. He feels happy. But how long he will be happy in that state? Because when the mind is full of aspirations and expectations, he won't be satisfied with what he has achieved. So imagine, the whole process did not give him happiness because he thought he will be happy only when he reaches destination. At the same time, the reached destination also is not going to give him happiness because he is not going to be satisfied with what he got. His mind will start aspiring for something better. Say, for example, a person with great difficulty got admitted to in a famous college in economics honors. Did his course very well. He also studied post-graduation, MPhil, PhD. Then he aimed for IES, Indian Economic Service. He got through that also and posted very nicely. The life was running smooth. Now a thought arises. This Manmohan Singh, he is also an economist only. Then he could become a prime minister. Why can't I? Now the problem starts again. He is no more happy with what position he has already holding. That is why Thiruvalluvar, a great poet in South, he says, Karka Kashadara Karka. What should be the purpose of learning? Learning should help one to wither off the kama, krodha, lobha, mada, macharyam from oneself, that is he called as kashadu ara. These are all garbages, kashadu. When one is out of these kashadu, Tiruvallur says, katrabil nirka adarku taga. After learning to the effect of removing all the dirt in one's mind, stick on to what is being learned. In Tamil, there is a beautiful saying, Padikkirathu Ramayanam, Idikkirathu Perumal Koi. How foolish it will be when a person reading Ramayanam gets indulged in breaking Vishnu temple. So what is learned must be practiced. This can be possible when we give importance to know God in each and every action, in the each and every learning of us. Anything can be studied, but search God in it. When learning something, think this learning opportunity is being given to me by God. It is because of God's grace I could learn this. If we keep on practicing this, we come to know that God alone pervades in
Kalaka, we lost you again.
ரங்கசாமி மொபைல் யூஸ் பண்ணி பேசலாம் கலா. அதுல கனெக்ஷன் இருக்கு. Kala, you were saying that God alone pervades everything. After Karka Kashadara Karka, we lost it.
after Karka Kashadara. So Katrabin Nirka, the next stanza will be Katrabin Nirka Adarku Taga. After learning to the effect of removing all the dirt in our mind, stick on to what is being learned. In Tamil, there is a beautiful saying, Padikkirathu Ramayanam, Idikkirathu Perumal Koil. How foolish it will be when a person reading Ramayana gets indulged in breaking a Vishnu temple. So what is learned must be practiced. This can be possible when we give importance to know God in each and every action, in each and every learning of ours. Anything can be studied, but search God in it. When learning something, think, this learning opportunity is given to me by God. It is because of God's grace I could learn this. If we keep on practicing this, we come to know that God alone provides in each of our learning, and we could realize the all-pervading God within us also. In that state, as Taimanavar says, கொடுத்தது அத்துணையும் கொள்ளை கொடுத்து உன்னை அடைந்தேன் பராபரனே. O God, giving in robbery of what all has been given to me by you, then only I realized you. Sadhuvam says, even Bhagavan says, why roundabout way? There is a direct way. Give importance to know about God alone. He says, you may learn many things, but see the presence of God in each learning. Then a stage will come when all learning will disappear and you will be left only with the presence of being. கற்கும் கல்வி பலவிதம், கடவுள் கல்வி முதலிடம். நற்சிறப்பு யாவினும் ஞானை நிஷ்டை முதலிடம். ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
We now have the sharing by Ujjwal Jagadish.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We were meditating on the verses from Ramana Chatvarimshat, written by Ganapati Muni and compiled by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We were in the third verse. रमणेन सनाथमिदं भुवनं रमणेन सनाथमिदं भुवनं चतुरेण चलेन्द्रियनिग्रहणे पटुना परकीयगुणग्रहणे चलवर्जितमौन समाधिजुषा बलतर्जित भीकर कामरुषा रमणनिन्दपतिय पडेदिहुदि भुवना रमणनिन्दपतिय पडेदिहुदि भुवना चतुरनी ಚಲನೇಂದ್ರಿಯ ನಿಗ್ರಹಿಸಲು ನಿಪುಣನೀ ಪರರ ಸುಗುಣ ಗ್ರಹಿಸಲು ಛಲವಿಲ್ಲದ ಮೌನ ಸಮಾಧಿ ಸ್ಥಿತ ನಿನ ಬಲ ಬೆದರಿಪುದು ಭೀಕರ ಕಾಮಾದಿಗಳ. ಗಣಪತಿ ಮುನಿ ಸೇಸ್, ಓ ರಮಣ, your bhala, the bhala of your nama, the bhala of your upadesha is so strong, so bhikara, that it has the power to destroy the kama, destroy the desire at its root. We know of the story when Ramana was staying in the hill. At the time they were staying at Virupaksha cave, the devotees used to go for bhiksha, singing Arunachal Aksharamalai, and get some bhiksha. And some days they used to get nice rice and dal and various things. But some days there was only rice to eat. So when a little rice was available, the rice was mixed with hot water and it was made a gruel, and that gruel was given equally to everyone, and that was shared and that was had as that food for that day. When they used to have this, one of the devotees told, "Oh Ramana, we are having this just the rice and the hot water. If we had little salt, it would have been so nice. Can we go and ask for some salt also next time when we get the rice?" Then Ramana told, "Now you will ask for salt, and next day you will ask for some pulses, and the other day you will ask from jaggery, and on the third day you may ask for paisam itself. There is no end for desires. So drink whatever is given, have whatever is given as the prasadam, and do not desire for anything more." That was the Upadesha, and we see in the lives of devotees that they have followed it. They were contented with what they had. We know of the story of the little Venkatu, who became T.N. Venkatraman, the president of Ramanashramam. When he was a little boy, somebody had brought some sweets from Bombay at that time, some barfi from Bombay, and as the practice was there, whatever was brought to the ashram was equally distributed between all the devotees, and the barfis were equally divided to small pieces, and all the devotees got one piece, and even Venkatu, the little Venkatu, also got his share, and he had the sweet, and the sweet was so tasty, and he wanted one more piece, and he saw here and there everybody had finished eating their part. And there in the corner of the Skandashram, he saw one plate, and in that plate there was one small piece of barfi, and he saw here and there so that nobody was seeing him. Slowly he stretched his hand to take that small sweet, and soon came this Nondi monkey, and the Nondi monkey slapped one on the cheeks of Venkatu, and Venkatu started crying loudly, and all the devotees gathered and they all wondered, why did Nondi hit little Venkatu? This Nondi has become very, very naughty, and they started complaining about Nondi and scolding Nondi and pacifying Venkatu, and Venkatu was crying loudly. And hearing this cry, Ramana came and asked Venkatu, "What happened? Why are you crying?" And Venkatu told, "Nondi hit me, that's why I am crying." And Ramana told, "Nondi will simply not beat you. What did you do? Tell me, Venkatu." Then Venkatu came up with what he had done. He wanted one more share of the sweet, which was so tasty. So he went to take the small sweet which was there on the plate. And Ramana told, didn't you get your share? Don't you know that is Nundi's share? That's why he has hit you. So from now onwards, you never desire for anybody else's share. And he made Venkatu sit on his lap and advise this great Upadesha. And T.N. Venkatraman says that later in his life, that he never desired for anything. He always felt that Ramana, the Bhagavan, had given him whatever was required. And there is an example of T.N. Venkatraman's better half, Nagu Mami story, where before even the desire appeared, Ramana gave his Upadesha, which was so strong, just like the fire which comes from the third eye of the Shiva, it destroys the Kama. Once this Nagu Mami had a friend from Chennai, from Madras, who had come, and seeing her sari, she casually, spontaneously told, very nice sari, very beautiful sari. She just casually commented. And after this young friend whom she had, she reached Chennai, she sent back as a parcel 2 saris to ashram. And it was the practice in ashram that whatever comes to ashram, it may be named with the individual's name. It was first reported to Bhagavan, Bhagavan saw it, and then it was distributed to the devotees. And this sari came to Bhagavan's notice. And that day, when Ramana went to kitchen, he was very, very stern. And then he turned towards Nagu Mami and told, Nagu, we have come to this ashram. Okay, we should, many rich devotees may come to the ashram, but we should not have any desires for their wealth. We have come to the ashram, you should be contented with what you have. If you see something beautiful, think that you already have it. Then you will not have any desires. So he told sternly, and this shaked Nagu Mami, and she started crying. And all the people in the kitchen, they supported Nagu Mami, telling, Bhagavan, why are you scolding her? She didn't even ask for the sari. She only commented that it was nice. It was there on their own accord. They have sent the sari. And Ramana told, what is told is for the good. And he told, and he moved out of the kitchen to do his work. And Nagu Mami reminds that this was the great Upadesha that she got from Bhagavan, that whenever she had a desire, then this desire never appeared in her. And that is what she taught all her children who are leading the ashram today, to lead a life, a contented life with what we have and what is given by the divine, and to not desire. And this is the great Upadesha that was given by Bhagavan Ramana. When you understand that for a true disciple, the work is within, and the desire is the work which makes us move out, the thought which makes us move out, and there is no work outside. So the only work that we need to do is to turn within and abide in the self. And that is the Upadesha that Ramana has given. This Upadesha has the power, such power, because it has risen from that Mauna Samadhi. Hence, it has that power of that Kamari Shiva, who destroys the Kama with his opening his Jnana Drishti. In the same way, Bhagavan has Ramana has shown us the path of attaining this Jnana Drishti and destroying the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. How Kalaka told, the very purpose of learning, very purpose of any Upadesha that we hear is to destroy all these Kamadi Shatrus. And Ramana has shown us this path. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, who shines as a self in all beings. We have been meditating on the Ramana Ashtotra. Today, we just heard from Ujjwal about the destruction of Kama by the third eye of Shiva. And earlier from Dr. Kalarani about the destruction of all the Arishad Vargas. So we were meditating on the first Nama in Ashtotra. When we are meditating on that Nama is the birth of Mahasena, the birth of Subramanya. What is the background to the birth of Subramanya? The background to the birth of Subramanya is actually the Kamadahana. When the Devas wanted Surapadma to be killed, they knew that he has to be killed by the power of Shiva Shakti. that union of Shiva and Shakti. But there was Shiva, and Shiva was in deep dhyana. It is to say, he is in samadhi, he is not aware of anything, not of Shakti, nothing. There is that Advitiya experience which is there in Shiva. That is what is Shiva Tattva. Shiva is the self. There is no movement in the self. Bhagavan says, Satchit Udiyad. Now the self is not born. So where from any Shakti, anything is going to happen. But Parvati is doing tapas. She has been born to be united with Shiva. That is the divine purpose of Shiva himself. So she has been born and she is doing tapas. And how to unite Shiva with Parvati? Devas are worried. They are not able to stand the difficulties, the atrocities which are being inflicted by Surapadma. So there is a point in our lives when the play of the ego begins to disturb us. There is a point up to which the play of other people's egos are disturbing us. That is one point of time. But there is another point of time when we recognize that the entire drama, the entire pain is not coming from outside. It is coming from within ourselves. And from where from within ourselves is all this difficulty arising? It is not rising because of A or B or C situation. It is rising primarily because there is somebody in me who is of the nature of desire itself, who is a Kama Rupa, who is nothing but desire. There is nothing but desire in the ego. Ego is only desire. Its basic desire is to sustain itself. Based on that desire, all other desires are there. I want to continue to remain as an entity. I want to continue to remain as Sharada. In the Gita Sara, we had the verses where Bhagavan is telling us that there is no destruction to the self. But that which is born must die, and that which is dying must be born. So there is this cycle of birth and death which is happening. Why is it happening? What is it that is born? What is birth? Bhagavan says, from deep sleep we are born. Because of desire we wake up. Because of thought we wake up. And thought is desire. If there is no desire, well, what are we going to be thinking about? In Upadesha Saram, Bhagavan says, Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. If one is in one's own state, what is there to do? If there is nothing to do, what are we going to be thinking about? So this Kama is the very beginning, the very rise of thought. And who is the Kamari? He is Shiva. So when the Devas, when our agitation comes to destroy Sura Padma within us, when we recognize that all the problems are arising because of this ego, because of this identity, we want to get rid of the identity. But what happens? The desire is there to get rid of the identity. So for that desire, we have to take action. We have to put in effort, and we have to get the grace of the Lord. We have to ask God to give us grace, to take the effort of giving us grace. Can we sit quiet, saying that the grace will come? Grace is already there. No, there also they cannot sit quiet. So the Devas decided that they will send Kama to disturb Shiva's meditation and get some action happening. And action happened. What action happened? Shiva opened his third eye and destroyed Kama. After that, on the prayer of Rati, he restored Kama as an invisible entity. Okay, so the Kama was destroyed. So the beginning actually is, unless we have got rid of desire for external things, how will our mind be able to focus on the self? So the background of the birth of Skanda is that Kama is destroyed. Once Kama is destroyed, once the need for extroversion is destroyed, then the inner journey begins. It is called Viveka, and stronger than Viveka, it is called Vairagya. In Tamil, the word Vairagya is now used to mean something else. It means being very adamant. Somehow I will achieve this. Does not matter. Even if we have that Vairagya, that determination to attain the self, so there is Vairagya. Vairagya is dispassion. Viveka is discrimination. You know something is right, you know something is wrong. But unless you choose what is right, it is not Vairagya. It is only Viveka. You know it is wrong, but you still do it. You know something should not be done, but we still do it. So the point is that once one gets that strong Vairagya, that this alone matters, then what happens is that the forces of Shiva Shakti have come together. We are aware that Satyahi Chit Chittayaham. That Sat and Chit are not different from each other. Right now, for us, Sat is different, Chit is different. We think, I know. My knowledge is separate from my being. So, I separate everything. Everything is separated. That's why we found that the path is also one of separation is given to us because we keep on separating things. So the ultimate separation Bhagavan teaches us of separating the I from the not I, separating the I from the thought, and thereby recognizing that the self alone is there. I am rising from the self. I have to surrender to the self. So we found that from the Kama Dahana and then the union of Shiva Shakti, the force called Subramanya was born, who destroyed every aspect of Surapadma. When we meditate on the Nama, Om Mahasena Mahomsena Jataya Namaha, what is Vishwanatha Swami telling us? That Bhagavan is born already. He is born. He is not going to be born. He is already born. Jataya Namaha. Mahasena Mahumshena Jataya Namaha. He is already born within us. So when we are praying to this Bhagavan as the Shakti of Mahasena, already born within us, already has fulfilled his purpose. So what is left for us to do is to say Paripalaya, like Surapadma, oh, you have come. You have come. You are born, O Subramanya. You are that which is going to cut asunder this thought that I am the body. You have come for that. So I am ready to surrender to you. That conviction, with that conviction, we have to remember this Nama, that every time that we say Mahasena Mahomsena Jataha, we remember the veil of Subramanya. We remember the self-inquiry of Bhagavan. We remember that Kama Dahana of Shiva, and from which the Shakti of Subramanya was born. The light of Subramanya came from Shiva. We remember this. But most of all, we remember that he has come to destroy our sense of separateness, and we need not worry because he is already born. He is already born. When we say that Nama, we are saying that you are already born within me, O Subramanya. I am ready to surrender to you. Make me your vehicle. As Surapadma became your vehicle, make me your voice as Surapadma became your voice in your flag. Make me this if you choose to. But I am surrendering. When every thought arises, we must recognize this is karma. And this karma is arising in the form of a thought in me. But this form of thought is going to be destroyed by the veil, the sacred veil of Subramanya, the question, who am I? That is why he has come. So in that line itself, Vishwanatha Swami will say, Mahasena Mahumsena Jata Sri Ramano Guruhu. So he finishes that line, he starts it with the birth of Subramanya, and he finishes that first line of the Stotram with the word Guru. So that these three names are linked to each other. Subramanya is the Guru, he is the Guru Tattva who has come to save us. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We now have the chanting of Aksharamana Male by Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Omkara பொருள் உயர்வில்லோய் முனையாரறிவார் அருணாச்சலா. ஔவை பொல் என்ன குன்னருளை தந்தென்னை ஆளுவதுன் கடன் அருணாச்சலா. கண்ணுக்கு கண்ணாய் கண்ணின்றி காணுனை காணுவதெவர் பார் அருணாச்சலா. காந்தம் இரும்பு போல் கவர்ந்தென்னை விடாமல் கலந்தென்னோடிருப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா. கிரியுருவாகிய கிருபை கடலே கிருபை கூர்ந்தருள்வாய் அருணாச்சலா. கீழ்மேலெங்கும் கிளரொளி மணியன் கீழ்மையை பாஷை அருணாச்சலா. குற்றமுற்றறுத்தென்னை குணமாய் பணித்தாள் குரு உருவாயொளிர் அருணாச்சலா. கூர்வாட்கண்ணியர் கொடுமையில் படாதருள் கூர்ந்தென்னை சேர்ந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. கெஞ்சியும் வஞ்சியாய் கொஞ்சமும் இறங்கில்லை அஞ்சல் என்றே அருள் அருணாச்சலா. கேடாதளிக்கும் முன் கேடில் புகழை கேடு செய்யாதருள் அருணாச்சலா. கையினிற் கனிவுன் மெய்ரசம் கொண்டு உவகை வெறி கொள்ள அருள் அருணாச்சலா. கொடியிட்டடியரை கொல்லுனை கட்டி கொண்டங்கென் வாழ்வேன் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி நண்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி.
Namo Ramana. We conclude the satsang with Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan, chanted by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Ashwini and Uma.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योमि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्दितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौळिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासिंहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूणिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। अष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्व गभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संघिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Namo Ramana, everyone.